This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 169 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Equestrian Collections, Draper Therapy, Fleeceworks, and Kentucky Performance Products.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Fergus, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show. We've also got Glenn Hebert here, our producer.
Hey, guys. Good to see you again.
Hey, Glenn. How are you?
All right.
Hey, Philip. What's going on?
Oh, it's been a pretty good week. Beautiful weather, right? Is everybody having the same?
Yes, we are. We are having a kind of an early fall, which is, I'm sure it's going to get really hot here, but it has been beautiful.
Well, you made up for some of those 100-degree days you had for a month in the middle of summer, though.
That's true. That's true. And thankfully, we went to a horse show last weekend, and it was great because a horse show in August in Kentucky, you're rolling the dice.
Did you have a bunch of students there?
I did. And you know what? We had one of those weekends that was just great. I think the longer I get in my career, the more I always love those weekends. Everybody got their scores. Everybody did well. The judging was excellent. The facility was great. The weather was great. So it really was a fun weekend, and everybody came away with a smile, and the horses got lots of carrots.
Well, that's good to hear because, Philip, doesn't it always seem like when you're bringing a whole bunch, and I know it used to be this way when we worked with Pony Club and when we went to events with a lot of our students, is you always had that one that had the crappy day, and it brought everybody down because you want everybody to do well, and you had that one rider that just wasn't on that day, and it kind of brought everybody down, and that was kind of a bummer sometimes.
Well, it's a strange experience. I mean, we were also at a local show this week. I had 10 riders, and it kind of stops the celebration a little bit. Like people who maybe won their class or did really well don't want to kind of jump up and down in front of somebody that didn't have a great day, and I think that's what happens. But you just try and bring everybody up. We can't all have a good day every time, so.
Yeah, and you kind of feel bad for the ones that did have a good time because you're right. They're kind of on pins and needles, and they're trying not to offend their friend. And
exactly.
When they really want to just jump up and down and forget about the friend altogether is really what they want to do.
I think we've all been on both ends of that.
Yes, we have.
Right? Yeah.
So
that's why. It was so unusual for everybody to have a great weekend, and there was none of that. At the show before, we had a tough judge, and so everyone came away with a funny feeling. But this time, we all celebrated. We went for a big dinner on Saturday night, and it was great fun. So,
do you guys sometimes think, as trainers at shows like this, and dealing with students, and especially students, I mean, students of any age, but teenagers especially, that that a requirement should be before you can start training in any kind of discipline or sport that you should have psychology classes because that's where you spend most of your time?
I think every teenager needs psychology classes. It's nothing to do with horse showing or competing. It just is tough to be a teenager.
But I would totally agree with the fact that actually I've even thought about going to take some psychology classes because it is a huge part of what I do. And Philip, you too. And I had a sports psychologist in 2009, 2010 through the USOC, and she was wonderful. And I have sent some students to sports psychologists. I think it is something we should dedicate a whole show to it because I think it's super important, and but I think for trainers, it's a good investment.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and we should spend a whole show on that sometime because it is part of what you deal with anytime you have students. If you're training and have students, you're dealing. We always said that having a big farm, and we had 25, 30 horses at one point. That the easy part was the horses. It's always the people that are the tough part.
It is. And dressage is such a mental sport. I typically, our rule is we don't go to a horse show unless we can get a 60% at home or higher. So, everybody can do it when they can go to the show, but you add in, the nerves and, even just getting to the horse show and different clothes. And, there's a lot of different factors that as you get further along in your career, it becomes less and less of an issue. But it's a huge part. It really is. And something that everybody has to work on.
Well, this week I think we're going to go into that a little bit too, what goes into making the young horses into champions.
We are. And Philip, this is actually how Philip and I met. We met at the Hassler Dressage has a young horse trainer symposium every year. And so this is a topic that Philip and I are both near and dear to our hearts. And we have definitely some friends that are coming on to the show, and they're all wonderful riders and have had horses in the championships before. And we'll talk a little bit with them about how things change from 4 to 5 and 6-year-olds.
So we're covering the whole gambit here, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds today.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of the young horse program and what goes on there, and I think it is really important to give our young superstars a really good start and to bring them along correctly, and this program really helps with this and gives a lot of guidelines in the tests and in the judging and allows you to show off really nice horses that are going to be great FEI horses that don't have to stay in the barn until they're 7 and doing Prix St. George or 8 and 9 doing Grand Prix.
Now, I do have a question. This may be a dumb question, and I apologize in advance. Now, the Young Horse Championships, is this amateurs bringing the young horses, or are these all professionals bringing it? Is it a combination of both?
It's mostly professionals, okay. Wouldn't you say, Philip? In general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know every single person that shows in the young horse classes. When you get to the championships, I would assume that it's like 90% professionals.
Yeah, and I think, we talk a lot about trainers and at our young horse symposiums, it has to be the right horse. It has to be the right situation. These horses have been put on a track from the time that they're 3 and get started. Typically, most of them are in professional training. So they really go on the track to young horses. And sometimes they don't make it as 4-year-olds and they make it as 5-year-olds and can't make the jump to 6-year-olds. The 6-year-olds is a huge jump there. But, most of the time it's professional riders and horses that have been, kind of put on that track. Wouldn't you say, Philip?
Yeah, I mean, I think even with the best superstar talent horses, you need the right guidance to get them to the right place. And, for an amateur to do it, it can be very challenging. There's a lot of pitfalls and mistakes to make. And then all of a sudden you're missing your goal of doing the 4-year-olds. And then, you get a little bit stuck behind sometimes, and then you're not doing the 4 or the 5 or the 6-year-olds. I mean, this is a program for super talent horses that maybe will have a chance to go into the Olympics and maybe, have a high performance career ahead of them, get sold to professionals. So I think it's important that professionals are starting these horses and really getting them to the right places, right? And the other aspect is that in the judging in the 4, 5, 6-year-olds. There's open comment for the judges at the end of the test, and that can be really difficult for an amateur to maybe hear some negative comments, whereas, as a professional, you have maybe a thicker skin to be able to deal with that.
And this program is not for every horse. My young horse, for example, he is 6 months younger. He was born in September. I didn't even think to take him to the 4-year-old. It wasn't even in my frame of reference because do I think he has the talent? Yes. Am I realistic in the fact that he is just too far behind these guys? I mean, he's just going to his first horse show for the weekend to hang out and not even being shown yet. As a breeder and a rider, of course I want to push him there, but there always is the time to sort of evaluate your horse. And I always think it's important, if you think you have a nice young horse, get it to somebody that's either been to the finals, or Scott Hassler is the young horse coach. He'll be honest with you and tell you if it's the right track for your horse. Maybe my young horse will catch up as a 5 or a 6-year-old. Maybe he won't catch up until we get to the developing horse. But, I think it's really important to be very honest with yourself and see. So, these are wonderful, wonderful horses. And some have even represented the U.S. at Verden at the Young Horse Championships in Europe. So, but that's also my advice I give people is not every horse makes it, and it's okay if your horse doesn't make it.
Yeah, there's lots of wonderful horses that don't fit into this kind of mold. It's just for certain horses, right? And certain horses and certain riders. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of professional riders that don't do these classes as well. It doesn't mean it's bad horses or bad riding, but if you do have a special horse, and we have some people coming on that have these special horses, and this was their plan, and it seems to be working out for them really well, it's awesome, right? Because, like I said, you get a chance to bring out some wonderful horses at a little bit lower level, and they get to compete against each other. It's level playing field sort of thing.
Well, let's take a look at those levels and what happens at the different ages with our guests coming up here. We have 3 of them, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention, and Reese knows how much this means to me, is the Paralympic Games getting underway next week over in London. There are 70 horses riding in the dressage competition over there. And we at the Horse Radio Network have been huge sponsors of the Paralympians. We actually did a fundraiser for them before the WEG, and they've become our friends over the years here. And the American team has made it to London, and I think most of the horses have been arriving. So we're looking forward to supporting them and wishing Missy Ranshausen and the whole gang good luck over there. Rebecca Hart, who's a good friend of the Horse Radio Network, is riding and has a real good chance of doing well over there.
Well, she's a good friend of ours, and we're so looking forward and crossing our fingers that she has a great Olympic Games. So we can't wait to hear how they do.
We'll be reporting on that in the weeks to come. But first, let's take a break for FleeceWorks, our friends with the terrific fleece products, and then we'll be back with your first guest.
Coach Jen here, host of the Horse Tip Daily Show, and I've been joined here by Judy McSwain from FleeceWorks, and I hear there are some fantastic things coming up in your dressage pad lineup. Tell me about it.
We've made some changes to the line for September. The first thing is we had launched the TheraWool this year, and we put it out in the general pads. But by September, we'll have our TheraWool in a dressage half pad, which is pretty exciting.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
It's a little bit of a different price point and a little bit more washable. So I think that's pretty exciting. The second thing that we've done is in our sheepskin half pads with the rolled edge and without the rolled edge, we've taken our dressage size that we had and we've made them a bit bigger. And then because of the changes in the dressage saddles, I thought for a while that we were going to be able to do one pad, and just there's such diversity in the saddles now, we're going to have to do 2 sizes, and the new size will be in September. So we've got a dressage half pad with the rolled edge and without in a regular, and in September we're also going to have the dressage half pad with the rolled edge and without in a large. And that's something new for the company.
Now, are the TheraWool going to be available in both sizes in addition to the sheepskin?
Initially, we're going to do them in the large,
and
then if we get enough demand, if people start to ask us to do smaller, then we'll do smaller.
All right, so September, look for those TheraWool half pads to be coming to your local tack shop, and if you don't see them, tell your local tack shop they need to contact Judy ASAB. She can be found at fleeceworks.com. All of her contact information is right there, and she's a really nice lady. You should call her.
Tonight we have Becky Noman from Noman Dressage on. She is riding the mare Whitney, and she's going to talk a little bit about her journey to the 4-year-old national finals. Becky, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
And it sounds like you are at Lamplight right now and just got off of your horse. So thanks for joining us.
Yes, it's wonderful weather here. We've had clear skies all day and a nice breeze.
Excellent. So, Becky, you are riding a 4-year-old in the national championship. Can you tell us all a little bit about the requirements of the 4-year-old test?
Yes. The 4-year-olds, you have to go to qualifying competitions. They have them all over the U.S. and all the different regions. You have a minimum score requirement, which is a 7.2 to get qualified. They actually will take the top 15 horses in the country, and it's all based on scores. This year, many horses applied and competed to get a spot to come here. So it was a very good year Lots of great horses, and all the horses here this year are all fabulous.
Becky, tell us a little bit about the test itself. What does a 4-year-old horse, have to do to compete?
Well, the 4-year-olds the tests do require some lengthenings in them, in the trots. The test does allow you to rise the trot on the 4-year-olds. They're actually national tests. So our federation writes the 4-year-old tests for us. We don't use the FDI 4-year-old test. We use our national tests. It's not a test for every 4-year-old out there. It takes a special 4-year-old. Not all 4-year-olds have the balance they need to do this test at 4. So it's one of those things that you can start trying to ride and compete and get qualified, and you might find that this test isn't for every 4-year-old. But for the special ones out there that it is for, it's a great test to do. It really sets the horses up for a future, FEI future. Then you hope that they can go on and do the 5-year-olds and the 6-year-olds after they do the 4-year-olds.
So, Becky, tell us a little bit about the horse that you brought to the finals.
I brought a horse. Her name is Whitney. She is owned by Betsy Kong. She's a lovely mare. She was bred by Jill Vonderhaar in Ohio. She's about 16 hands. What's really unique about Whitney is that she is also ridden by her amateur owner. So Betsy has showed her this year as well. So she's been a very versatile horse. She's been quite competitive in the 4-year-olds, and she's also been competitive with her owner on her as well. So that's something a little unique for her. And she purchased her as a 3-year-old. She was very well started by Meg Williams, who is in Indiana and has Oakwood Farm. And so we've just been developing her, and she's really surprised us. You like to have an agenda for these horses, and you like to train them up, but, when they're young like this, you sometimes don't know these things. But she's developed nicely, good in her balance and strength, and it's been a lot of fun.
And can you tell us about the breed and maybe the bloodlines of this horse, if you know them?
Yes, she's a Hanoverian, and she is by Meg Williams Stallion, and she is by a Rhode Spawn mare, and her name is Rosabella.
Excellent. And Becky, did you ride in the preliminary test today?
Today, no, we did not ride in the preliminary test. We decided to do a first-level test, and we did that today. And she was a very good girl. She scored a 69%, and we were quite happy with her.
And what led you to ride the first-level test instead of maybe the 4-year-old test?
I just didn't want to put that pressure there. I think I wanted her to stay relaxed and quiet and just enjoy herself and just kind of save her for Saturday for the championship ride.
So Becky, you get one shot with a 4-year-old, is that right? Or do you have another test that you can ride?
No, there's one test. And that is on Saturday.
Can you tell us a little bit about the qualities of that horse that led you to take her towards the 4-year-old path?
She has 3 really good gaits. Got a super walk, a great trot, and a very good uphill canter. She's quite balanced for her age, which is, they're very challenged at 4 in their balance. But she's very good there. She's also very rideable horse, very trainable, likes her work. It actually has been quite easy for her. So been fun developing her. And, not all of them are like that at this age, but she is, and she continues to do very well at it.
So, Becky, what's your plans after the finals with the mare?
Well, I think I'm going to have to talk to her owner about that and see, what her vision is for the future for her. She is going to be the owner's horse to ride, so we will probably focus on making them, more of a team together. Her owner has her own goals that she wants to achieve with her. She is taking her to regional championships, so she will be going to regionals with her owner and showing in training level championship class. So I'm sure she'll want to focus on that.
And what kind of things have you been working on with the mare, maybe to improve her in any ways, or maybe some exercises that are good for a 4-year-old horse that is so good, maybe that there's not a lot of challenges.
Right. Well, we work on all of my young horses, not just her, but we, really work on, again, balance, stretching, longitudinal stretching, lateral stretching. We start leg yielding at this age, transition work. And we have to, the biggest thing with the 4-year-olds is managing them because they get tired. They get tired quickly. You go to a show, you have to really manage them. You have to watch them. Maybe you sign up for 2 classes, but you only do 1, depending on how they're feeling. The one thing about the 4-year-olds I work with, they like to take lots of naps during the day, get their rest. So really with the young horses, you try to have a plan, but a lot of times it's day to day, see how they're feeling. Of course, we work on getting them stronger. But the biggest thing is just managing them and not overworking them, developing their muscles, not making them too tired. So you're actually strengthening them. And that's just such a fine line, with that. Strengthening them without making them tired and also preventing injury.
And Becky, how do you do that when you travel? She's had a big travel day. She didn't travel as far as some, but how does that affect you and her at the competition?
So when we travel with the young ones, we like to get there. On the day we travel, we do not work them. On the day we travel, we let them rest. So yesterday was her jog. So she got to rest after she traveled. She did her jog yesterday, and then we worked her very lightly after the jog. And then this morning she was, and it worked well because this morning she was very peppy. She was very alive. She felt very good. And we just did the 1 class today. So we'll probably just do the 1 class tomorrow, and then she'll ride her championship ride.
And on a daily and maybe weekly basis at home, how do you approach the training, with the duration and how many days a week maybe that you ride her?
Right. She goes about 5 days a week. She gets turned out. She gets turned out about every day. When it did get hotter in the summertime, she didn't go out for as long. We try to get her out a little earlier because that, of course, makes them tired when they're out in the sun and it's hot. We take her for hacks, and it's her training's different because her owner is also riding her as well. So mostly her owner rides her, and then I may ride her a few days a week. Of course, the closer we got to championships, I kind of rode her a little bit more. But basically, her owner does keep her in a work program.
Well, Becky, everybody here at the Horse Radio Network, we wish you the best of luck this weekend. We can't wait to report on it next week. And Becky, if we were looking to find you on the internet, where could we find you?
You can find us at www.nolemandressage.com. Also, we're on Facebook, and we are in Ohio. And all of our information is on our website.
Well, great. Thank you so much, and we will have our fingers crossed for you on Saturday.
Well, we're going to be back with Debbie Hill next talking about 5-year-olds. But first, we have a word from Draper Therapies. I had an opportunity to speak with Kat from Draper earlier about an email we got from one of our listeners. So let's take a listen. Well, hi, Kat from Draper Therapies. I heard that you got a very interesting email from one of our guy listeners to the Horse Radio Network.
We absolutely did, and it was really exciting. I was going through our reviews earlier this morning, and I found a great review on our socks, and I would love to be able to share that with you guys.
And this is on the human socks, the kind I wear.
Absolutely. It's the one Glenn's are always touting, so.
All right, go ahead.
So this is from Robert Grantham, one of the listeners, and he had said, I heard about these on Horses in the Morning on the Horse Radio Network. I work anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day, mostly on my feet as a maintenance mechanic. I have tried many different types of socks to make my feet more comfortable, and to no avail, I decided to try the Draper socks I bought to take advantage of the Horse Radio Network discount. They arrived a week ago, and on the way to clean stalls, I put them on right there in my car at the post office. I instantly could tell the difference. Each day I wore one pair and was amazed how much better my feet felt. At the end of 3 days, I washed all 3 pairs so I could wear them the next 3 days. I did force myself to wear an old pair today just to see how it felt. Well, I'm going to order more Draper socks soon, and once I have enough to get through a week without washing, I will dispose of my old socks. I'm also looking at trying the T-shirts and getting more products for my aging Arabian mares.
Well,
that's
terrific.
Cool.
Well, he must have heard me bragging about the socks on the morning show.
I think that's what happened. So thanks, Glenn.
Well, I'll tell you what, they really do work. Everything he said is true. And if you're on your feet all day, then you've got to have these things. And you do notice the difference. It's interesting because he said the same thing I said, is once you wear them for a day or two and then you go back and wear one of your regular old pairs of white socks, it just doesn't, they don't do anything, so... Yeah. They don't have what I call the magic Draper dust. They don't have that magic Draper dust.
Oh, that's so not correct, but it's funny how you call it that because it's true. There's something magical about them and fantastic. So we're really excited that you guys can all feel the benefits from them.
Well, that's good. And he's a guy listener, of course. Well, one of the things, too, is all of us horse people, whether you're dressage or an eventer or you just trail ride, whatever it is, we all have dogs, and one of the things I've seen is some of our listeners starting to get on to the canine therapy dog bed, and one of the cool things is with our discount, you can get it shipped for free, and this is a big dog bed.
It's a huge dog bed. These are very special dog beds in that there's like almost a layer on the outside, so that layer is got turnout material on the bottom of it, so they're super durable, and then on the top you have the therapeutic fabric or the magic dust on top. And then you have the centerpiece, which is just canvas, so it's encasing all of the stuffing. So if you want to take the outside off to wash it and things like that, you can go right ahead and do that. I've seen people using these dog beds in their barns, and they hold up amazing for that purpose. But then on the inside, they have these great stuffing that, especially when it gets matted down, you can refluff it. But like the extra large dog bed weighs 15 pounds. I mean, that's a lot. And when you get free shipping, it makes the deal so much sweeter.
And these are terrific, especially for dogs that have just maybe are recovering from an injury or they're arthritic older dogs. They're good for any dog, but especially when you have dogs that might have some kind of just had surgery or injuries because of what I call the magic dust, because of the therapeutic properties of the material. It really does help them, just like the socks help human feet.
Absolutely.
And you can find those all at drapertherapies.com. And they do have the dog bed does come in different sizes. So you can find all of those different sizes right there on the website. And it's something you could really do for the special dog in your life. At drapertherapies.com, just look for canine products, the Draper Canine Therapy Dog Bed, and go to human products for the socks. You're going to love, love, love the socks.
And now I'd like to introduce Debbie Hill from Alabama. She is riding 2 horses in the 5-year-old national championships. Debbie, welcome to the Horse Radio Network. Thanks for coming on from Lamplight this week.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So, Debbie, we'd love to start talking a little bit about what are the requirements for the 5-year-old division at the national finals.
Well, they introduced a collection. There's mostly working gaits, but they want to see the horses they're starting to collect. And medium canter, medium trot, and back to collection, so, expandability and then collectability in the gaits, and counter canter, and simple changes from the canter to the walk and back to the canter. And let's see, rein back and turn on the haunches.
That's a lot of good stuff. Yeah,
cover it. Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it for the 5-year-olds. Tell us about the 2 5-year-olds that you brought to the horse show.
Well, I've got a Bugatti horse. His name is Boccaccio. He was bred up at Hilltop, and he's owned by Marcia Richardson, and she lives in Tennessee. And then I have Sir Sherlock, who is a Sir Donner Hall, and he is owned by Leslie Waterman, and she lives in Nashville, Tennessee. And
Excellent.
they're both very different types.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your first one.
So Boccaccio is kind of a little bit smaller, more refined type, light on its feet, good hind leg, but not a big, beautiful, strong horse. And he was actually injured as a 3-year-old in the pasture. And so he had about 9 months off, and he's only been a little over a year back into training, which he was just green broke. So he has really impressed me and been able to come a long way fast. He's very smart and very trainable.
Can you talk a little bit about the injury and how you brought him back, and maybe as specific as you want, and what kind of exercises you were careful about?
Sure. He was injured, like I said, it was just a pasture injury, and he had nearly 9 months of stall rest and just hand walking. That was before he came to me. The injury was actually up north. And then the owner sent him to a place in Tennessee where they did a rehab. It was a rehab center where they did swimming him and, treadmill, and it was great. So he came to me already a little bit ready to go back to work. And I just took it really slow, and the owner was, interested in the young horse program and said, "Do you think he can do 5-year-old?" And my first answer was, "He's 4, and he's basically just broke, and I don't really see how he could do it." But he's very smart and, light on his feet, handy. And he just, I was careful and worked on one thing at a time and careful not to repeat too many things or to put too much stress on the hind legs, for long periods of time. And he's just, come right along and done great. I'm real proud of him that he was able to make it here and do well today.
Excellent. So you rode him today in the preliminary finals or preliminary test? How did that go?
It went well. All the scores were on the low side. I think everybody, and it was also tight, like the whole field was close. So, for example, I think the first place horse had a 7.66, and we were in 6th place. Boccaccio and I were in 6th place with a 7.48. So it was really a little bit lower than we're used to at the championships, but close scoring too. So it kind of leaves it open.
Debbie, you want to talk a little bit about your other horse now and how he's different from the first one, and maybe how you approach the training of the 2 horses a little bit differently based on how different they are, maybe?
Definitely. Sherlock is a big, beautiful, handsome horse, but he's about 17.2 and, a little bit gawky teenager type. So he's not as handy, harder to manage around the more difficult maneuvers in the test, but has more natural power and presence for sure. So he's one that you can kind of power up and show that end of it a little more, but it's trickier to balance him around the tighter movements. And the other one, you can show off his collectability. But Sherlock did great today, too. I was really pleased with him. They were close as well. Sherlock ended up in 8th place, with a 7.4. So like I said, it was a tight field, especially like the top 11 or 12. So I'm pleased. I think we're in a fair enough position, and they were both well behaved. And the atmosphere here is kind of busy and charged, and I was really pleased with the both of them.
Now, Debbie, maybe for our listeners, you could explain a little bit the difference between the young horse test and the regular dressage test, and why we talk about the score being 7.4 instead of in a 60-70% kind of thing.
Right. Well, they score it differently. They just give you 5 marks, 1 for walk, 1 for trot, 1 for canter, and 1 for submission, and 1 for general impression. And instead of giving it an 80% or a 70%, they just give us flat 7 or an 8 for each of the 5 components. And they stress more the quality of movement and balance and training over
safety, just being perfectly accurate with all of your movements. So, and the accuracy, of course, is important too, but not as important as the quality, I think, in some cases.
So there is no rider mark?
No, but they definitely, in the general impression and submission, really in the gates too, they do comment on it, and they definitely make a comment if they feel like the horse is on the right training path and presented in the way that they want to see it presented.
And Debbie, how do the judges handle, if it's a young horse, if they play around a little bit, how does that work?
Most of the time they're pretty, especially with the 4-year-olds, and a little less with the 5-year-olds and a little less with the 6-year-olds. But and there's a lot of stallions here too, and of course they play around a lot. They seem to be pretty flexible with that, as long as they don't feel like it's resistance to the rider and it's just playing around. And the atmosphere, if it happens, especially just one place or maybe two spots, but if it's prolonged and affecting their ability to do the movements, then they take it off more. And they mostly handle that in the submission category and a little bit in general impression as well.
And at the end of each test, the judges, they comment on the ride?
Yes, it's public, on the PA or mic, and they talk about each of the 5 scores and the horse, and sometimes strengths and weaknesses, and they give the score publicly.
Do you find that difficult?
Nice for a little bit. It's nerve-wracking. You hope they don't say anything negative, and they always have to give constructive criticism. So inevitably they're going to say something negative, but they try, I think, to lead with the positive for sure. And it's nice for the spectators, and it's nice for us, even the people who are showing in it, when we're watching the other riders or the other age groups that may not have a horse in. It's really nice to watch the test and then hear exactly what they think right after and see what they're looking for and why they might score something down or up.
So, Debbie, tell us, what is the schedule for the rest of the week for you guys?
For us, we are just showing in a few open classes tomorrow, and then on Saturday the final test, the finals for the 5-year-olds will happen on Saturday, and that will count for 60%. Today's preliminary test counts for 40%.
And what do you think is the most challenging part of the test for each horse?
I think that the simple changes are a little bit difficult for each of them for different reasons, but that's a hard part of that particular test. And Boccaccio, I call him Bo, he is a little bit of a more tense horse, so sometimes he wants to jig a little bit in the walk, and he has a great walk, so that's unfortunate when that happens a little bit. And Sherlock, keeping his balance and his medium trot is a little bit tricky for him.
Well, Debbie, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Do you want to tell us where people can find you on the internet?
Sure. I do have a website. It's just Debbie Hill Dressage. So, and I really appreciate you guys having me. It's been fun.
And we're working our way up to 6-year-olds with Ula Parker here in a minute. But first, this week's Product of the Week from Equestrian Collections. Hi, Glenn, back with you from the Horse Radio Network. I'm here with Debbie with the Equestrian Collections Product of the Week.
This week we're featuring some new exciting breeches that we have in stock right now for the plus-size rider. Equine Couture Plus-Size Coolmax Champion Side Zip. These breeches have a Euro seat. They have the CS2 bottoms, which is that silky material that helps you get the boot, your leg in the boot nice and smoothly. The fabric is 82% nylon, 12% Coolmax, and 6% Lycra. The most comfortable thing you can put on. They're perfect for summer riding. They're perfect for summer shows, and they're in stock right now. We have long and regular sizes, all the way from 36 up to 44. So this is just the perfect summer breech, and we can get it to you right away. Just it's about $79.
Wow, well, that's a terrific price, Debbie. Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah, so that's the Equine Couture Coolmax Champion Side Zip. You can also shop in our 1824 store to find these breeches and many other products for the plus-size rider.
And of course, that's all at equestriancollections.com.
Our next interview is with Ula Parker. She rides out of Cruciador Farms in Maryland, and she's riding a 6-year-old in the championships. Hi, Ula. Thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Great. If we could start out by talking about the requirements for the FEI 6-year-old test.
Well, this is the first time the horse is being introduced to flying changes and half passes and shoulder ends. And, of course, they are going to require much more self-carriage and balance, and have to be way more uphill. I mean, they have to be much stronger. A lot of horses, they're being, they can't make it. It's a big, huge step for the young horses. For me, the biggest thing is the changes.
Ula, if you could just, how do you prepare, and what level with the other tests, the normal test, what kind of level is the 6-year-old test? Where would you put that in?
I have used third level test 1 as like a prepare. That's a test I ride before I even go in the 6-year-old test. So it's to make sure, because they have the one flying change to each side, and they have the half passes and the shoulder ends, and it's a really good test to introduce the 6-year-olds. I don't like just throwing them into the 6-year-old test and not, because in the regular test you can get away with a little bit more. You don't have to put so much pressure on them as you do in the 6-year-old test. So I use the third level test 1 as a prepare, to prepare them.
So Ula, and you have been very successful with 6-year-olds and through the Young Horse program, you do a phenomenal job with your horses. So can you talk to us a little bit about, the jump from 5 to 6-year-old, and have you had horses that make that jump or not make that jump? How do you determine, which horses to go ahead and take to the 6-year-olds?
Well, I have actually, not to be as smart as anything, the ones I've had through the program has actually all made it to the 6-year-old. But it all, the biggest thing for me is the balance, the whole balance with them. Like, 'cause if you don't have them balanced, there's no way you're going to be able to get them through this test.
What kind of exercises do you put them through, or that you maybe, building between the 5-year-old year and the 6-year-old year? What kind of exercises are you doing that help them to learn? I mean, it's all about collection, right? And how do you get them to collect? Basically that's the hardest thing, I think, in all horses.
Well, I mean, if I start doing a little, half steps with them, like from the ground, like teach them to sit a little bit. And I do a ton of tempo changes. Coming back, going forward, coming back, and lots of transitions, just to keep them getting that hind end stronger and stronger. And then, if you're lucky enough, you have hills. Use hills to strengthen that up, and then just ton of shoulder ends and half passes. Just keep building it, but keep making sure it's fun for the horse too. That's my biggest thing. I do not like to fry their brains in a ring, so I ride a lot out in the field with mine, and just pretty much ride them in big grass field and just build them up that way. That's what I've done.
Reese, do you have any experience with that? I mean, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, no, I agree with Ula when it comes to the 6-year-old test. It is a very, very difficult test, and I'm also in a place that we have great hills, and we've talked about it before in the show. I think the hills are a great thing and can really help. It also helps keep them fresh without in the arena. But Philip, what do you do? What are some things that you do for your kids?
I mean, I think Ula really hit on a great point about, transitions. I mean, it comes right down to the basics of being able to go forward and come back in good balance and build the strength in that way. But I think, going to another point, it's about, good riding too. I mean, you can't make that transition from 5 to 6 if you don't know what you're doing, right? And I think you really need a great rider that knows how to do that, because if you're trying to do all that within 1 year, well, less than 1 year, because you're trying to get out to compete, it's really, I mean, close to impossible. So I think, you know, sometimes it's not just about a horse with great ability, but a rider with a great idea how to make a plan and how not to fry the horses out, like Ula said. I mean, a lot of horses, you know, can do it physically, but very, very difficult mentally to make that next step. And sometimes they need an extra year or two, right? And not to bring them out to the 6-year-old, even if they were a great 5-year-old.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You see a lot. I mean, last year, the championships, like the 5-year-old class was huge. I mean, I've never seen so much talent in one class. And there are maybe 2, maybe 3 horses from the 5. There was 5 here last year that's here this year as a 6-year-old. And that just gets to tell you the big jump, I mean, the difficultness, you know, that comes with this step.
Yeah. So talk to us about your horse there, Ula. About it's Biasca, right?
Biscaya.
Sorry. Yeah, I always get it wrong.
It's fine. Well, to begin, I broke her in as I think it was either a late 3-year-old or really early 4-year-old, and then I did actually do the 4-year-olds with her, like try to qualify her, but she was really immature in her mind. She was really nervous, and I just decided that it wasn't the right time for her to do it. So she was qualified for the championships, but decided not to go. And then I think I did Devon with her. I can't even remember that. I think I did Devon with her, and she did great. And then over the winter, Scott Hassler helped me, and we just got her stronger and more confident. And then I got her qualified to the championships as a 5-year-old, and I did the selection trials, the East Coast selection trials with her, where she placed second. And then she won in Devon last year, the Young Horse Championships there. And then we're here now. And she has the best temperament. She's the sweetest horse. It's really, really easy to work with. I mean, I have never worked with such a sweet horse before. And she just comes out with a great attitude every single time I get on her. I really feel like her, and once I get on her, I feel at one with her. Like, I feel at home on her.
So, Ula, talk to us a little bit about some challenges that you have had, facing you through the championships from the time she was 4, 5, and 6. What are some challenges that you've worked through?
I had a big issue with the changes with her because she likes sometimes to drop her back. Like, she gets nervous, she gets up in her neck, and then she drops her back, and then it's hard to get the hind end, to change. And that has been the biggest challenge, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to do the selection trials with her until 3 days before everything clicked. We figured out what to do, and the changes have been ever since. We had a big aha moment, both of us.
Are you willing to reveal your secret?
Well, as you both know, I rode with Stefan Peters at the symposium at Hasless, and he helped me tremendously, and I sort of actually went back with some of the things he worked with me on. Like, she got a little stiff to the right side for me. Like, she actually got locked on the right side. I'm like, this is not working, because I kept wanting to loosen up to the right side, and she was disconnected to the left side. So instead of focusing so much on getting that right side loose, I kept riding her up to the left rein, and that was our big revelation. That's what did it. And don't ask me why. I never, it just, I don't know. You guys know how it is with training, right? So you're like, why didn't I think about this way before?
It's not always that obvious. Yeah,
it isn't, and that's why I think the symposium, and we are all actually friends from the Young Horse Symposium that happens every year at Hassler, and we all go and we talk about young horses and we work together, and really we've learned to kind of bounce things off of each other if we don't have other help, and that's been really helpful. So we were there. Yeah, we were there watching Ula work the changes and praying for her that she would figure it out. So to hear that you got the aha moment was we saw it. It was awesome.
We did. I mean, it was so. I mean, and the great thing about it was everything else got so much better. I mean, this horse has one of the best hind legs I've ever seen. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to get this to work, and it was just, it was a big day the day we figured it out.
Ula, where can we find you online?
Well, we do have a website. It's crossyourdoorfarm.com. That's the farm I work for. And then we also have a Facebook page. It's also Cross Your Door Farm.
Well, that was interesting, guys. I learned a lot today about the Young Horse series and all the different levels. That was very interesting conversation with Ula there at the end, too. And we have now our Kentucky Performance Products, our Supplement 101 session. If you remember last week, we talked about older horses who couldn't keep weight on. Well, this week, we're going to talk about the older horses who are fatties and what to do about that. I've never had the skinny older horses. I've always had the fat older horses. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what supplements best fit the fat older horse. Hi, Glenn the Geek here from the Horse Radio Network, and I'm here with Karen from Kentucky Performance Products with a sensible supplementing tip of the week. And this is part 2, talking about senior horses. Last week we talked about the ones who can't keep weight on, and this week we're talking about everybody's dream horse, the Easy Keeper. Now, sometimes that causes its own set of problems, which we're going to talk about today. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Glenn. How are you today?
Okay, so when we talk about easy keepers, we mean seniors that don't have any trouble keeping weight on, but yet that has its own set of issues, doesn't it?
Well, it does, because, people call us all the time and go, my gosh, what am I going to feed this horse? He lives on air.
We have one of those.
Give enough grain. I know, you have one beaker.
Yep.
And it's really frustrating. Again, like we talked about last time, it's so important for these older horses to have enough fiber in their diet. And, if you have a 1,000-pound fat little quarter horse, how do you feed them 20 pounds of hay a day? And, you need to try to get at least 15 to 20 pounds of hay in them. And what most people do and what they've figured out is that you have to buy a lower quality hay. Of course, with lower quality hay, you have to worry about mold and dust and so on. So it's really important to find a source of somebody that will give you a mature Timothy or one of the other grass hays that doesn't have as much energy per pound in it, and get a good mature source and have that in front of your horse all the time so he has that long-stemmed hay to chew. Many of these older horses, senior horses, and horses that are easy keepers cannot tolerate much grass, if any at all. So there's a couple of things, and also they can't tolerate a lot of grain. So right there you have some big holes in their diet, because hay only has so many vitamins and minerals in it. And then, of course, the more mature hay, which is what you want to feed these guys because they don't need the energy, has even less vitamins and minerals in it. So the important thing to do is to find a good, balanced vitamin mineral supplement that you can add to their diet. Some people are fortunate enough that they can get one of those like light feeds. And they can feed enough of that. If you feed it at the recommended level that they tell you to, however many pounds that is, usually it's around 5 pounds a day, then your horse should be getting the complete complement of vitamins and minerals. But if you can't feed the recommended amount of concentrate, say if you're feeding half or if you're feeding, a handful of grain a day, then your horse is not getting the vitamins and minerals he needs. And you have to provide that. You have to fill that gap with a vitamin and mineral supplement.
We would have that. Geez, if we fed Beaker 5 pounds a day, it would be the size of a house.
Yeah. I had a quarter horse that was like that too, and I was competing him. So it was a real challenge to try to get the vitamins and minerals, and he really needed it. And when horse is just eating hay alone, you start to notice that their coat starts to get dull, and they just don't look very good. So finding a good, well-balanced vitamin and mineral supplement will really help. The other thing that's very, very important and is missing from a horse that's eating an all-forage diet, especially an all-hay diet, is natural vitamin E. And natural vitamin E, the research is becoming more and more apparent through the research that horses really need this nutrient. It's an essential nutrient.
It would have been in their natural diet, in the grass. It's an essential nutrient. They don't make it themselves, so you have to provide it for them. And if it's not there, then horses will have lots of problems. The vitamin E is an antioxidant that supports all of the systems in the body, and if it's not there, then horses will have a lot of trouble. So it's important to give your horse a vitamin E supplement as well.
Now we use, for Beaker, who's our very easy keeper quarter horse, we use Microphase, which is a Kentucky Performance product.
Yes, it is, and Microphase was developed specifically for that purpose. I was like, okay, what am I going to give this horse of mine that, can live on air? It also has natural vitamin E in it, Microphase, and it's very important to use natural vitamin E. Many feeds and supplements will use synthetic vitamin E, which is a petroleum-based product, and it is not absorbed as well in the horse as natural vitamin E, which is plant-based. The synthetic vitamin E has a much more complicated molecular structure, so it's not absorbed as well. So you want to look for a natural vitamin E when you're looking for a vitamin E supplement.
And that's Microphase. And you have a second one, too, that could be beneficial for the older easy keeper.
We do. That's the Elevate Maintenance Powder. And that's a natural vitamin E. And it's you just feed 7 grams a day, which, it's hard for people to relate to what a gram is. But it's this tiny little scoop. And one jar lasts 130 days. And you need to feed around 1,000 to 2,000 IUs of natural vitamin E a day to a horse that's on an all-forage diet. And it's just hanging out. If they're exercising, you have to increase it more, because as the horse exercises more, their antioxidant requirements go up. But for a horse that's just hanging out and doing light trail riding, just 1,000 to 2,000 IUs is sufficient.
Terrific. Well, you can find out more about both of those products at Kentucky Performance Products. Their website is kppusa.com, and they have some terrific articles in there also under the Tips and Topics section. And we also encourage you to follow them on Facebook. Just search for Kentucky Performance Products, because Karen is always putting all kinds of good information up there, too, about horse health and nutrition. And you can find it all, again, at kppusa.com. So thank you to Kentucky Performance Products for providing those helpful supplement tips as we go down the road here. Hey, guys, I have a quick question for you. Now, where do the horses go from the young rider here when they go into age 7? Is there another program after that? Where do they go from here?
There is, Glenn. Actually, it's the Developing Horse Pre-St. George, and then they have the Developing Horse Grand Prix. So that's what we're going to focus on next week, is kind of the next step on where these horses go, which I think it'll be a neat transition to kind of see from the young horse all the way up to Grand Prix and to the high performance divisions. So these are all national finals through the U.S. Philip, you don't have these in Canada, do you?
No, but I mean, we can start the 7-year-olds in the Pre-St. George, and they can spend a couple of years there to get confirmed there, and then move on, of course, to the Grand Prix, and again, just spend their time in the Grand Prix. You don't expect a whole lot when you bring a horse to do those levels. Their first year, you just get them used to the tests, and you can ride them through that, and then they develop and get better with some time. But lots of countries have great developing programs that the horses stay in the right path towards showing and getting better.
Exactly. These are just, they're USCF programs. They're a way for riders to get involved with the high performance part of USCF. Again, we've stressed it a lot today, but not every horse can do these programs. And some can do some classes and, get hurt or something and can't make it to the other ones. But I think it'll be a fun to have a different group on next week to kind of talk about the more upper level type development for the horses.
Can I ask, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but Reese, what's the adoption rate been for this? In other words, when we get to the Grand Prix level and when we get to the higher levels, how many of those horses have come through these programs now, or how many have, come in from the outside?
Well, I think, I don't know exactly. And I am pretty sure this is the first year or the second year for the Developing Horse Grand Prix. Okay. That's a very new program. And I think, again, if you have a horse that's ready to go, it's worth doing it. If you have the sponsors, it's a great program for owners. Owners are very well celebrated in this program. And like Philip talked about earlier, these are programs developing horses for the Olympic Games and for the Pan Am Games. It's very much a feeder system for horses. So it is a tough program. There's ranking lists. These are all mostly CDIs. You have to have 2 judges for all of these selection trials. So it's a tough program, but riders are really starting to adopt it. Again, it's being well received from the riders, and I think people want to be part of the programs. So I think they'll continue to be more and more popular as time evolves. So, Philip, I'm looking forward to our discussion next week, and you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on the website at dressageradio.com. You can like us on Facebook. Just search for the Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is Maplecrest Farm KY, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me at philipparksequestrian.com, and my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. And a big thank you to our sponsors, Equestrian Collections, Kentucky Performance Products, Fleeceworks, and Draper Therapies. Don't forget to check out all the other shows on Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Hey, don't forget the morning show, Horses in the Morning. Got to go with my plug-in. Horsesinthemorning.com. Every morning, 9 a.m.
Every
Eastern.
morning. It's so fun. But everybody keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we look forward to seeing and talking with you next week.